Okay, to make your Van Gogh landscapes, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your paper and you're going to fold it in half by holding down the bottom, picking up the top, having it go all the way down like a wave, spider fingers up, and fold. Then open it back up. That's the first step. The next step is now we have this line here. This is what's called the horizon line. Everything above the line is going to be the sky, and everything below the line is going to be the ground. That gives us a lot of ground to put stuff on. We're going to be using what's called oil pastels. These are oil pastels. They're a lot like crayons, but they're a lot softer. They're kind of like soft crayons. Now, to make our Van Gogh landscape, Van Gogh used lots of lines and lots of colors. I'm going to start making my grass. And see how I'm using lots of green there, and now I'm going to use the other kind of green. I'm going to add that kind of green too. And I'm making sideways curved lines for my grass. Now I also want to add a tree. So I'm going to put a tree right here. Now trees can go all the way up into the sky too. That's okay. And I'm going to use up and down lines for my tree trunk like that. And I also might use some black in my tree as well. And I might even use a little bit of that darker yellow. Just like that. Then I'm going to make the top of my tree, and those are going to be curved, curly lines of green. But I'm going to have this tree be right at the beginning of autumn, so I'm going to add some red leaves to my tree and some yellow or some orange leaves too, and maybe even some yellow leaves also. Alright, now I'm going to keep going on my grass.
It's important to remember just to add lines. We're not trying to fill this in or color it in, we're just adding lines. Lines full of action, just like Van Gogh would make.
And I'm going to add the dark green too. Now, we know that blue and yellow make green. So if I wanted to add some yellow, I could add some yellow. If I wanted to add a little bit of light blue, I could add a little bit of light blue too. Only because blue and yellow make green. I want to add purple because purple doesn't make green. Purple's not a part of green. Now I'm going to add some blue for my sky. Now Van Gogh's skies were always very, very wavy and crazy, so I'm going to add some wind lines like this. I'm going to add lots of wind lines. I'm just going to add the wind lines. And if you want this to be at night, you can use the dark blue, and if you want it to be during the day, you can add the light blue. And if it's at night, you can have some stars in there, and you can have some stars going around, some light lines like this, some curved lines around the stars, just like that. And I'm going to add some more wind, and some more wind, and some more wind, wavy wind lines. And then if I want to add some white clouds, I can add some white clouds. I'm going to add some white wavy line clouds.
Remember, we're just adding lines, wavy wind lines. We're not trying to color the whole thing in, we're just adding some lines.
Just like that. Now I'm going to go get some paints. Now the paint that I'm using is called Watercolor Paints, and all I have is blue because that's the only paint that I'm going to be using. I'm just going to be using some blue for the sky. Now just with our other kinds of paints, we need to get our brush wet first, and then we get the paints wet, and we just tap, 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 just like that. And then when we've got some paint on our brush, we can just paint it. But what's neat is it won't paint over the oil pastels. So your clouds and your wind lines and your stars still show up. And you're just going to paint that whole sky. You can even paint over the tree like that.
Mrs. Fowler, please call the office.
Okay, and then you are all done with your Van Gogh landscape.